Okay, hi everyone. Great to be at the conference, even though it's online and not in person. And hopefully our connection stays strong, even though we're not connected in person. So yeah, I'm actually just wanting to share just the basics on the 5 pillars of attachment and bonding. It's more of a teaser for anyone who's joining me today. It's a in-depth training actually, but I just thought it's just to get people excited about it. As Rafa already said, that it's been one of our key stones that we have learned in the 20 years that we've been working at the village. And just wanting to go through it with you guys, and hopefully it just triggers something that makes you want to go deeper. We've just seen the amazing blessing it is for our children when we really take time to focus on the attachment of our children. Just on that matters, you know, when we're all working in the children's centers, children are usually dropped in quite a dramatic time, you know, because of a traumatic thing that's happening at home. They suddenly picked up, all their attachment is just cut in one go. No warning usually given to children, and a case manager suddenly just drops them at the center and says, right, this is the child, and they've dropped into the home, into the unit with the caregiver, and there you have this little parcel of quite a traumatized child. Even though they might not show it, if you're very sensitive to the signs, you actually start picking up that a child is just trying to cope and manage their feelings at the time of being very insecure, feeling very unsafe. And having no trust relationship with their caregivers or anyone that they know, because everyone's a stranger. They don't know anyone at the home. And it's very important to, once you get into this attachment and bonding, to actually filter it through your whole organization, from entrance to being at the village or in your center, to transferring them back to their homes, or going into foster care or adoption. As we mentioned, that this is a program that's come from the UK and is being used for foster families, adoptive families that become the new forever home. But we've used everything for good to place our kids back into the community, back with their families. And just that whole transfer of reunification, we just see in the past that case managers suddenly can, you know, give us a call at our center and say, right, this child's being reunified this month, sometimes even giving us 2 weeks, where we're totally shocked that this child, because they've been dropped like that, a lot of case managers feel they can also be picked up in the same manner. So yeah, we over the years, we've been known by case managers that we don't release our kids easily. Not that we don't want to, we are very happy for them to go home, but we do release them slowly at their pace so that they have attached to their family members or foster families or adoptive families, that they're attached before we let go of them. And it takes time. So I just wanted to go through some of those things, and I want to show you just with a slideshow, and I'm going to hope to try and share my screen. Hopefully this all works and that you'll be able to see it full screen. Hopefully this is coming across on your screens, and then we can go from there. So very much the attachment and bonding process in the reunification, but remember this is also applicable to when they arrive, which, as I say, usually doesn't give us any chance or ability, but the pointers are also very important to use whilst they're in your care. So why is it so important? As I mentioned, it's very important that if a child is well attached, they have been proven to be more successful in life, not only emotionally, but also even educationally and socially. A lot of our kids in our home are battling educationally, and it's not because they're intellectually not able to. A lot of them have a 1 or 2 year delay purely because of the drastic change in their situation, life situation, upsets them emotionally in that way, and then therefore it also affects them educationally. So it is very important to do that. Now, just to go back on the Child Care Act, there's the 2 big pillars of the Child Care Act: is family is best, and the best interest of the child. Now, of course, family is best. Usually a child comes to the institution because a family isn't the best option. So when we do decide to change the situation that the child can go back to the family or to a new family, remember the child is traumatized. So we need to be very sensitive to go at the pace of a child. So it needs to be in the best interest of the child. They're a little human being, they've got emotions, they've got feelings, and the more they're comfortable with the whole reunification process, the more successful they will be. Because it's just heartbreaking when you hear of a reunification going wrong, but they go back into the system where it wasn't needed if we would have taken our time to do it. And it really takes everyone, you know, we need to be able to see when we reunite the child to the family, we need to be focused on what is in the best interest, as I said, and to make reunification successful. So let's take it from there. Now, if you think a detached or an attached, because we're talking about attachment, and I just wanted to go through feelings of being detached, then it shows you already why we want an attached child. So that a detached child feels that nobody loves me. I don't matter. I'm scared. I'm alone. I'm out of control. I'm angry. I feel rejected. And then I can't. So they're very much children who are very insecure about themselves. They can actually get very aggressive and angry. If they are out of control or feel rejected, they don't feel they need to be good to other people. So a lot of detached children become the people later on in society that have to go into the correctional services. So when we're dealing with our children, you know, the time and effort we put into them whilst they're at the center, you don't want that to just go and be nullified. You want it to have benefited the child for the long term. Institution isn't a good place to be, but it is something they have to be in, and therefore it's very important for us to allow them to be attached in their time that they're at the institution. I've seen a lot of child care homes where the caregivers are not keen to attach to their children because they're worried that once they're attached, the child won't leave, or it's going to be very emotional, or it's going to be more difficult for them to go. And it's been proven that when children attach during their time of being in an institution, you're able to transfer the attachment. There's no possibility of transferring if there is no attachment in the time that they're with you in the care home. So it's very important that child and youth care workers don't harden their hearts towards the children as much as it's hard. It really is. In our situation, as it was mentioned, we started off with children passing away because of HIV and AIDS. And I had caregivers that would say, it's okay, I can manage when a child had passed. The next child, I just won't love as much. I will keep my distance. And I had to encourage my caregivers to not do that. As Freeman said yesterday, and I don't know if anyone have watched his session, but it's definitely a good one to watch. It's messy being in the child care workforce. It gets messy, it gets emotional, it gets sore, because when we have children arrive to the home, we can bond with them, but when they leave, it hurts. It's a separation and loss feeling. So although I know it's very hard, I encourage my caregivers, and I really want to encourage everyone that deals with children to bond, to create a safe place for children. Because when you look at the feelings of an attached child, here we go, is I'm loved, I matter, I'm safe, I can safely explore, I can trust, I'm in control, I have talent, I belong, and I can. So here you've got a total different child. If you would have these two children sitting there, it's totally different. And it's something that you really want to have in your home. Kids who are attached are easier to handle, they're easier to connect with, it's easier to raise. And sometimes we don't know how long a child will be in our home. Sometimes it's just 6 months, sometimes it's 2 years. And we have children here that have become 18 to 21 in our children's village. So it's very hard to allow a child to attach to new people or even back to their home that was a time of not being safe or not being secure, to allow them to trust them again. And it takes time for that. But there are a few pillars that the attachment and bonding really can focus on, and to keep that in mind. And it's all to allow a child to feel safe and secure, because when a child feels safe and secure, they will be able to develop themselves in a better way. They will connect better with people. They will develop nice friendships and good relationships, which will again allow them to have a family of their own one day instead of a broken home. So the first important one is being available. Then we've got responding sensitively. Then we've got accepting the child. And then cooperative caregiving, where we allow the child to also be part of the planning. And then to promote family membership. So those are basically your 5 pillars. So if all you do after this session is remember there's 5 pillars, and you need to get these written down somewhere, and ask yourself the question, am I available? Am I responding sensitively? Am I accepting the child really for who they are? Am I allowing the child to be part of caregiving, having an input? And am I really creating and promoting family membership? And if you even do a little bit of each of those, you'll see that a child is going to feel more safe, more secure, and then you already know you've done something out of this presentation. So I just want to go a little bit deeper into being available. So being available builds trust between the child and the caregivers, and between the child and the adult. So it's incredibly important. If there's no trust, there's no relationship. We all know from our own experiences, if you don't trust someone, you don't allow yourself to get close to a person, you keep them at a distance, and you have a very cold relationship. So it's very important to allow a child to learn that they can trust. Of course, we're strangers when they come into the system, and they need to understand that you're available for them. And so we need to remember that we have to be fully focused and respond to the child's needs and signals. A child can sometimes speak to you without words. You have to feel them. You got to see them. You got to put yourself into their situation and understand, how would I feel if I was suddenly picked up and dropped at that age? So it's important to do a self-reflection as a caregiver, as a residential social worker, to remember that we're not just dealing with a child, but we're dealing with a little person who's got a lot of emotions, and to be very sensitive to their signals. And that's maybe where my career as a vet has helped me. You know, animals don't talk, and children sometimes also only talk with their feelings, how they respond, how they behave, and you've got to be able to read it like sign language. So be very sensitive in that and respond to it. Be sensitive. Reassure them when you're apart. At the beginning, what we do at Rehoboth is when a child arrives here, to try and establish a bond that's not there. We don't allow other people to deal with the child, only the caregiver. For 2 whole weeks, that child is with the caregiver or the reliever in the house, and they do everything with the child. So if the child cries, no one runs to it. They don't go to daycare, or they don't go to crash. They don't go to school for the first 2 weeks. They really spend time with the mum, where the mum will talk and just reestablish that I'm here for you, and get to know the child. And it's important that when the child then goes to preschool or goes to school, we always say, go with them, sit in a corner. If they need you, just to be there, to come back to, just to feel safe and secure, and then go back to the teacher or to a new friend. It's incredibly important to just be there. So when a child comes home, stop ironing clothes. Sit down, put it away, sit down, look at them, be available so that you can talk to them and hear how they are. So they really do believe that you care for them. Then we've got responding sensitively. It's very important that when we respond sensitively, they will learn to manage their own feelings. So it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be stressed. It's okay to be sad. A lot of my caregivers have tried to not show their emotions when a child leaves them. And especially when a child has been with them for years. You can imagine, it's like their own child. And then having to release the child back to a home where you knew it was unsafe at first, but now is safe. It's hard on them. And then they'll try and put up a smile and try not to cry and tell the child, don't cry. But it's good for them to show their emotions, and it's good for the caregiver to even say, I cry, or cry with them. And show your emotions, but always stay in control of it, but that it is fine to be like that. And it's very important to be able for them to discuss it. So also make a commentary of what's going to happen, because when a child knows what's going to happen, they can already imagine how they're going to feel. So, oh, your father is coming to visit you today. How does it make you feel? Are you happy? Are you sad? Use charts, facial charts, emotional charts, and also go through all those. Mirror the feelings, play it out in games, and see how they express their emotions in the whole process, even with reunifying. It's so important in that whole process of reunification to stay in connection with your child, to respond sensitively. Their emotions are going to be everywhere. They're going to be happy, but actually they're sad because they're scared. They're leaving what they know is safe behind, although they're excited what lies ahead. So there are a lot of conflicting emotions going on. And if we as caregivers aren't sensitive to them at that time, they can shut down and feel that those emotions are wrong or something like that. And then they will bottle it up and will have problems later on in life. So it's very important for them to be able to acknowledge as they go along. So allow the child to know that any feeling they have, and it can be the weirdest feelings. So expect the worst. They could be angry, they could be shouting, they could be crying, they don't want to do their chores or whatever, or they don't want to go to bed. We had a child who didn't want to go to bed that night because they knew the next morning when they woke up, they were going to go home. And the mother just stayed up with them and said, let's make it an awesome night together. And she was very sensitive to the child. And then it's very important that the family especially needs to accept the child, but this is also for the caregivers at the institution. A child has got a baggage, got a history, has got a culture, has got family traits that is not familiar to you as a caregiver, and also not for the family. So it's very important that the whole team connects together in the process. So accepting the child allows the child to build their own self-esteem and actually feel that they have self-worth. With that comes confidence. Confidence allows you to be more bold in going and pushing your boundaries a bit. So it's very important for the child to feel good about themselves so that they know, I am okay. Remember, an institutional child is different to a child who's always been in the community. They have what I would say the Western world has kind of infiltrated in their upbringing. Because now not only has the family raised the child, there's the caregiver, there's the relieving caregiver, there's a social worker involved, there's a nurse involved, there's case managers involved, and then there's a lot of other children there. In our organization, we have a lot of volunteers from overseas. So then again, they've got overseas information coming in on how to do life or how to communicate. And so our children, especially if they've been in our place for a longer time, you can see that their traits are not culturally pure, if I may say it like that. So when they do go home, I've had little kids that would just run and jump onto Gogo's lap. And in the culture, if they were coming from a deep rural area, it was not accepted that a child just crawls onto your lap. With us, they come because they want their hugs from their caregivers. So those are the little things that the family who's receiving them back needs to understand, that these children have changed whilst they've been away. They're not the same when they left, and that they are different, and different doesn't mean it's wrong. They need to embrace the child, how they've become. They need to embrace the culture that they've established and see it as positive. I had a child who was mentioned to be seen as a coconut. Yeah, you're African on the outside, but you're white Western on the inside because you have such proper English. Our schooling is all home language English, and first additional language is Zulu. So our children are very strong in their English and then weaker in their Zulu. So when they go back into the rural areas, of course, the Zulu doesn't sound like the Zulu. I have Eastern Cape caregivers, so the Zulu is not the pure Zulu. And so our children are sometimes confronted with, hey, why you've got a funny accent? And the family needs to embrace it. Instead of seeing it as a disgrace, oh, my child isn't proper Zulu, or you can see he's got Western input, to bring it in a positive way and say, wow, you know, he could be a translator one day, or he's got such beautiful English, he'll be top of the class. Allowing the child to feel good and not to feel different, because they do feel different. They have a different background. And so it's very important that we allow that to take place. So when we as the CYCC and the family that has them reunified to them, they need to remember to compliment the child. They need to encourage them. They need to support them. And it's hard when you're dealing with really culturally strong elderly people I've seen. And it's very hard to tell them, you know, I know this is culturally right, but this child hasn't experienced that whilst they were in the home. And to just encourage them and to support them and compliment them. Because if they've got good self-esteem, you'll see that they will develop better. They will have better relationship with the family that they're reunited with. And then with that, they'll have a strong family concept. And they won't become the problematic child. They won't become the one that falls off the bandwagon and gets into contact with the Ministry of Justice. We don't want that. So it's very important for them to know they're valued and accepted in who they are. And so we need to create situations in which they can be successful, but also accept that they need to have boundaries. So building a self-esteem also means we as parents do need to give them a bit of balance. And then cooperative caregiving, I think that's one of the things that we have messed up a lot of times. We get so busy in the process of reunifying. We'll have team meetings with the caregiver. We've got the residential social worker. We've got the case manager there. Sometimes we forget to have the family member there. And we basically draw up a schedule. This is how it's going to work. And we've forgotten the child. And we go, oh, gosh. So it even happens to us that we've even done the attachment and foster care and we forget and we only bring in the child at a later stage. It's very important to bring them in from the start, even though they're young. Usually we think, oh, you know, only when they're 12 and over, they need to be at the meeting. But you know, a 6-year-old has feelings and emotions too. So it's very important to bring them in with it. What do you feel? What would you like? And it's important for that to know. So it helps children feel effective and in control of themselves, because when they're in control of the situation, they're less anxious. And remember, anxiety is the biggest enemy to the success of reunification. If a child is anxious, they are not going to be open for new relations. So really try and allow them to be part of it so they feel in control. And when they're in control, they feel less anxious. Remember when the child came to your institution, they were out of control. I feel so sorry. My heart breaks when they arrive. You can just see the desperation on their face. They are not in control of their situation. But once they're settled, once they're at the institution, there is no rush to bring them elsewhere because we're a safe place, remember. So we need to make sure that then we really do our best to transfer attachment to the family. So it promotes having choices and compromises. It's incredibly important for them. So we need to include the child in planning dates for reunification visits, whether we go quicker or slower, not what we want or what the case manager wants. It's important what the child is feeling. So when a child has had communication or has been in contact with the family, to say, when would you like them to come and visit you again? And we need to try and make it work and always be in communication with the child. And when they're little, you need to draw it out in charts. You need to say so many nights, and then your dad or your auntie or your granny is coming to visit, and then remind them the night before and remind them the next day. Now, we've also seen that sometimes you plan it and the family doesn't pitch because either there's no money for the taxi or something happens, and then the child is disappointed and feels rejected or not important. So it's very important to really support them in this process. So allow them to negotiate. So when it's time for sleepovers, we say, would you like to do one night or would you like to do 2 nights? So you give them a bit of a feeling they're in control. Which pajamas would you like to take? Which teddy bear do you want to take? Do you want your auntie to join you? Once they're kind of established there, we still ask them, would you like your caregiver to join you when you get dropped off? So they are in control of when they are feeling a bit insecure halfway through the process. They might have a bit of a setback. It's important for them to know that we are available to them, we're sensitive, and that we can actually help them decide how fast it's going. And then all along, we have to promote family membership. It helps a child to belong. We can always say, oh, no, they belong to the institution. It's not a belonging. That's why family is best. But if they can't be with family, it's important to allow them to know who's my family, who was my family. Talk about, maybe the area that their families come back, the name, their name, does it have a meaning? It all gives them an idea of who their family is. And to make it possible that we always try and get photos of family members when they arrive. If a family member visits, we take pictures, we stick it in their photo album so that they always have that as a picture. Oh, you look like your uncle, or things like that, and allow the caregiver to talk with the child about their homes. So we need to be very open-minded about that. Try and maintain family contact, whether it's via phone, by practical, seeing them, making it work. Sometimes it'll come back onto the caregiver, because when they've had a visitor, not only the child who's had the family visit, you're looking after more kids. And what we see is the jealousy in the kids of the rest of the unit. Why didn't my family visit? And you can get tears, you can get anger outbursts, but not to try and just silence it. It's showing that children are expressing their emotions, and to be sensitive to that. Allow them to express their emotions. One's frustrated, one's feeling rejected, but the other one's happy because, yay, my family visited. But it's very important to explain what family means, and to always say, whilst you're here, you belong to this family. As I say, we need to try and stay in contact. Okay, so it's very important, if they have a family attachment, to keep it so we can build back on it. Attachment goes way quicker when that happens. So basically, just the process of reunification I want to quickly run through is, it takes time. If you don't have time, don't reunify. That's how bold I can state it, because otherwise your reunification won't be successful. Of course, if you're dealing with a baby, different story. Then we can reunify within days, because the baby is so pliable for attachment when they're young. But once they get to the age of 2 to 4, it really slows down in learning and attaching to new people. So we're working with that very fragile age group of 0 to 4, where we can create attachments, but we've seen, and research has done a lot, they're saying after the age of 4, it becomes incredibly hard for a child to learn to attach. So it's very important you take time. For the older ones, we've had 6-year-olds or 8-year-olds having to be reunified after years of being with us, and it really takes time. They need to be confident you're there for them. You're going to be a scaffolding around them during this time. So it takes a whole time. It takes a team. If you are not a team and you're not able to communicate as a whole team, it's important the case manager talks to the social worker. It's important the social worker talks to the caregiver. The caregiver must be in contact with the child and the family in finding out how things are going, so we can actually really work at the right pace and not waste time, and to work basically, work with the iron when it's hot. So we needed to work as a team. We need to transfer the attachment when we have an attachment. The caregiver has an attachment, she can transfer it. The child is going to be looking at the caregiver. Are you okay with this? Is this safe? Is this secure? And if you have confidence in the reunification, the child will trust you and will start attaching to that. So the initial phase is basically when the whole team is involved. Verbal, visual aids, and time to process and express has to be given before you kick off. So don't just suddenly let a family member pitch and say, hi, you're coming home with me. That's detrimental for the child. So it's important that it's an initial planning phase. And then you've got your connecting phase, where when you're connecting with the child, it's important for them to know that you're available in the whole process. You're going to be sensitive to them in that stage of reconnecting. This is when the family visits the child. That's how we start, when we build up once a month, once every 2 weeks, and then every week, preferably. And then when we see that the child has built a sense of trust, feeling safe, we'll go and spend, a close proximity to the person, won't cry when the caregiver walks out the door. Then we know, okay, now it's ready for the next phase. And then we start doing the consolidating phase, is where we now bring the child to the family. So now the child needs to be part of the planning. So really have them be part of your planning of sleepovers. And again, draw it out on a chart. We make nice pictures. We do snails where the whole shell is little dates, or we do a train where every carriage is a date, And every day they can color one out so they can see how close they're getting to the sleepover. And they can take it with them when they go for sleepovers, that they know there's 2 nights, so they can stick at 2 nights. So they know they're coming back. It's important in this whole time of reunification, they know you're available. You're not going to abandon them and reject them or neglect them. They know they can count on you. So it's incredibly important in this time of connecting with your child. As a caregiver, you need to know, oh, sorry, where am I? I suddenly went too fast. The releasing phase. But I just want to go back to the consolidating phase. It's really important that at this time, this is the time they really start bonding with the family. So when you see that they don't really want to come back to the care home, you know now it's ready, and you've got to move at that pace. This is when you have your meeting again with the case managers and say, right, looks like the child is bonding. Probably in the next 2 weeks, they're ready to cut ties with the home. So it's very important to then start leaving stuff behind at the house. So leave your pajamas here for next time. Leave which teddies do you want to really start bringing? So they start heaving over, and it's a visual reminder that the child knows that now the place they're staying in the home now brings it to that site. So I just really want to encourage you to be sensitive to the child in this process. And when you really see that the child really doesn't want to come back to the home, that's the time to say, right, we release the child. So that's when the transfer, the attachment cord from this CYCC, the caregiver, to the family. And you only enter in that phase when you know there's attachment, that they are safe and secure. When you leave, they don't cry, they don't look where you are. And when you come back to fetch them, they're like, hi, and they don't even care you're there. You know, wow, now they're ready for it. Because remember, after that you've left and when the cord is cut, they are going to have some relapses. They are going to still miss home or miss memories or miss brothers and sisters that are here at the home. And it's important for caregivers to stay available. My biggest thing is stay available to the child that's been reunified, even if it's after a year, after 2 years. Tell them, you can find me on Facebook. When they get older, especially, you know, I still get messages of children that were reunified 2 years ago. Even this week, I said, hello, Auntie Yvonne, missing you all at Rehoboth. And I'll message them back, missing you too, house, school. They tell me how their reports have been. And it's so important for them to know I haven't been forgotten. Remember, this is a time in their life. It's part of their life story. You can't delete it. It's not like we were never there. And it's important for a child to embrace their history, to embrace their past and say, yes, I was an institution and they still love me till today. Doesn't mean they can come back to the home. We still allow them to come back for visits and holidays. They can come back when we do our New Year's celebration braai. We try and get as many reunified kids to come and visit with their families just to reconnect and say, hey, how are you doing? And that they don't need to be ashamed of where they've been and where they've come from. So it's incredibly important for that. So your follow-up phase is important. And I know case managers are like finished, file closed, next, and they move on. But it's important for you as a care worker and a residential social worker to remain a scaffolding for the child, to say we will always be that outer structure. You might bend with the storms and the waves coming, but we won't let you topple. So it's an incredibly importance for that follow-up phase. So being available and responding sensitively, I think stays, and you will always be part of their family history. So from a conclusion, to be successful in the reunification process, don't pass the parcel. It's not a pick and pay. You don't go in and you pick up a child and you drop off a child. The child is not an item. They're a human being with emotional, physical, social, spiritual, and intellectual needs. They need to be appreciated for who they are. So be sensitive, be available, be accepting, encourage the input all the time, and promote family membership, even after reunification has taken place. So remember, an attached child will most likely become a successful child or a young adult in their life. So we need to invest in the process of reunification, use the tools of attachment and bonding, the 5 pillars, and not give up on children. It's messy, it's painful, separation and loss, if you see how many kids have gone through an organization, even like ourselves, we care for 80 orphans at the moment, and in 20 years we've cared for a lot. So to never stop loving, never stop attaching, and to see it as our mandate to our children to keep them attached so we can transfer attachment in their process of reunification. So that is basically what I would love to share with you guys, and hopefully that's been helpful.
Okay. Thank you so much, Yvonne. I think we learned a lot. That was a very informative session, very relevant and very practical to what we do. And I think if we can take something out of this, for me, it's a child is not a parcel, a child is not an item. I think that's your conclusion over there. I had just jotted that down because it's touched me a lot. As we are doing this work, we want successful children. So obviously we have to put in the work. We have to put in the work. Attachment, we know that attachment is very important. Bonding with a child. So we have to avoid saying, you know, it's just a job. It can't be just a job. It is a job, but a very important job. But it can't be like we're working with machines, because we're working with people. Then we've got feelings, even if it's little people that have got feelings, that have got emotions, and we need to acknowledge those feelings. And we need to observe our children all the time so that we pick up on all those emotions that turn into reactions, that turn into behaviors. We need to see and interpret that. What does it mean? But I think most of the people that are in residential have worked with children that, you know, when a foster placement or something like that breaks down, how painful it is, you know, when that child comes back, the emotions with it, we feel it, that we tend to want to say, no, we don't want foster placements anymore, because when our children come back, it's painful for everyone involved, you know. But then again, we can't not have them bond with other people. We have children too that stay, and we say, you know what, let's build the relationships that were there, because we can't just say when a child now finishes school, we dump the child with people that they never had an attachment with. They never had any bonding. As you said, the preparation, you know, it needs to start over time. We need to remember that it needs time.
That's right.
And to remember those 5 pillars, I think they're very, very important. Being sensitive, accepting the child, cooperative caregiving, family relationships, and also to remember that reunification, you work in a team. Not one person can just do that. And that's very, very important for us to learn. I'm just going to go to the delegates' comments. Well done, Yvonne. I loved the attachment presentation. That's from Blessings Only. Zani Gwala says, thank you so much, Yvonne. Your presentation was outstanding and precise. Okay, Ntombi says hi. But you know, this was so for me. And I'm sure everybody else who works with people, attachment is important. And if we don't work on that, then what are we doing? What are we doing?
That's right.
We're trying to build, we're trying to heal. And when you said all those things, the word holistic as well kept coming to my mind, because that's everything that you encompassed. You touch on all emotional, all of it. You know, you can't work with one aspect only. And we need to be available as social service practitioners. And also, I think trust, very, very important, so that the child can feel safe and secure. Let me just check if there are any other comments. Okay. Okay, there is a session feedback part. If people want to give any other feedback after the session, you can also do that. And I think even if you want to share, there is a way you can get Yvonne's details if you want to check something, if you want to ask something. But the presentation is being recorded and it will be on the NACCW website if you want to go back and check on it. I will definitely do that, because it's very, very valuable, and I would want to share it with my team as well, if that's okay with you, Yvonne,
Definitely.
because I think
Go for it.
it's very valuable. It's like the core of what we do for the children. So yeah, Zani Gwala says, thank you, Yvonne. Your presentation was outstanding and precise. This is Zani Gwala from Greenfields Child and Care Center team. Well presented and useful. Yeah,
Thank you.
So, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Yvonne. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Because otherwise I will regurgitate everything. But I mean, I think that's a compliment to you, because we I've internalized it, and I can see where we need to use this. Okay, thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you as well to the delegates. We are going to the next plenary session. Yes, that's what's supposed to be at 11:45. Child and Youth Care Work Championing Hope. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.